I ended up taking this business program, the first one ever. And it was online for like essentially how to create an online business.
Yeah.
But I took it because the leader of it said it was good for artists as well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take it and it'll help me with making sure that I make the most of the New York experience. And I got on with her and I was like, okay, what advice do you have? This is where I'm at. This is what's going on. And she's, yeah, it's different for artists. So just keep working for free and hope that the right people are in the room.
Oh, gross.
Right. And this is after she'd been like, so like transforming one person after another on the phone call. And then for me, yeah, keep working for free. And I was just like, you know what? I can't anymore. I need to feel like I have more control over my life because I clearly don't have control over my life because you can't save people. Like somebody's dying. I even had thoughts of maybe if I'd stayed as a scientist, maybe I would have been able to cure this. And I had that kind of thought of, I think, the frustration of feeling helpless.
Welcome to the Work Less, Play More podcast for busy entrepreneurs who are ready to ditch the hustle, stop burning out on busy work, and get back to having a life. My name is Lindsay Johnson, aka The Radical Connector, and I've spent the last 10 years teaching first-time entrepreneurs how to get customers and make money. Listen in as I chat with other hustle recovering business owners as we share our top tips for, you guessed it, working less and playing more. Let's do this. Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of the Work Less, Play More podcast. I am super excited because we're going to be talking with Sarah Michelle Brown. Now, Sarah is a video coach and real life filmmaker who empowers big dreaming entrepreneurs like you to stop hiding from their camera and start feeling confident making videos. She teaches you how to make engaging videos in a fun and powerful way so you can create more visibility, income, and have a bigger impact on your work. I'm pretty sure you could figure out that we had a lot to talk about, and I can't wait to get into it in just a moment. Now, I do want to preface this with my mic was being a bit of a butt face. I'm gonna blame Mercury retrograde. Please don't mind if the sound is a little bit crackly or a little bit kind of muted at some points. Hang in there with me because man, oh man, we covered so much ground in this podcast. Sarah, ever the amazing storyteller, talked about her own journey from trying to do all the things that she thought would win her approval and how it took multiple people pointing out to her that she was on the wrong path and she was destined to direct and create film and eventually coach other entrepreneurs just like you to rock when they're on video. Let's be honest, I think a lot of us are really nervous when it comes to showing up online in the first place, let alone on video, let alone if that's live. Sarah also shares with us how at a time when she was dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of loss, it was a time that allowed her to step back and check in with what she really wanted and find the courage to finally be who she really wanted to be. Sarah shares some relatable stories I think you're going to connect with, and of course, some really fabulous wisdom and tips on how you can show up even more confidently, powerfully, authentically on video to connect with your audience and the people who just want to get to know you. All right, friends, let's do this thing. Sarah, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Lindsay. Thank you for inviting me.
I love how we're already singing. I'm like dancing. You can't see us on camera, friends, but I'm dancing.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. There will be singing coming. All right, friends, I'm so excited for you to listen to Sarah today. Sarah, you are a filmmaker. You are a master of all things video for your clients, helping them express themselves, get themselves out there, get out of their comfort zones, and really show up through video. How did you get into this?
Thank you. And I appreciate the what? Yeah, wow. That's a story that goes back 40 years, but Cliff's Notes version. Yeah. Just a few moons ago. And actually, it's funny about the age thing because I know women in, like, I'm in my 40s and you're supposed to be like, oh my God, I'm just happy to be here still. I'm just like, I've made it this far. Great.
Aging is a gift. I also am in my 40s. I've got another 40s birthday coming up in a few months. And
nice.
I can't believe I'm here already, but truly aging is a gift. And I think this year, the last couple of years, we're seeing that in living color, in proof.
Yeah. Like, it couldn't be any more in living color. It's a lot. But how I got here, with what I do and what led me to your podcast, it's again like a 40-year journey through life and careers. And then it all came together here. When I was a kid, like a young kid, I was very creative and I loved directing my little friends in plays that we would do at the school assembly every Friday. I'm sure they were god awful, but that's really where it started for me. And I would also act in those plays too. And we would just do the most ridiculous things. And then I went through a period of time, which I'm sure we'll get into, where I shut down my creative side and I went to the intellect.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And I was all about my grades, being a good student. And my grades and being a good student. That was pretty much me for several years there. And then so much so I had an academic scholarship for university, and I got started off in biochemistry. And after, it was going down that road. And after a little bit, I really realized I was in the wrong place. And that was thanks to an academic advisor there who said, so how are you enjoying the experience here? And I was like, you want the truth? And she said, of course. And I said, well, I really hate it. And she was like, okay, tell me more. And I said, it feels like in the sciences, I feel so choked. And in math and science, like, there's no gray scales. It's either black or white. You're right or you're wrong. And she had the insight at that time to say, I think you're doing the wrong program. I think this is not what you actually should be doing with your life. And she recommended that I take time off and figure out what I wanted. And I thought she was crazy. I was like, you're insane, because I'm supposed to go to school, do well, go to university, do well, graduate, get married, have my 2.5 kids.
Yep.
And
I do, because really I did it. And then I blew it all up. I didn't have the 2.5 kids, but you are braver than me. I did the wrong thing, or the thing that I didn't want to do, for many years, for way too long. So I am bowing down, super impressed with your bravery and courage to allow yourself to say, I don't like this, way sooner in life.
Thank you. It's funny because I thought she was crazy when she said that. I was just like, that's nuts. And I went and spoke with my family, and my grandparents were very against leaving university, but my mom and dad were so supportive. My mom was self-taught as a graphic designer and made her way to the tops of her knowledge. And she was just amazing, or she is amazing. And my dad, he said something to me that I'll never forget. And it was the thing that's been driving me through so much of my life. And he said, don't end up like me in a job that you hate. Do something you love.
Wow.
And so from there, I really took a step back in my own life. And I was just like, I'm just staying open. And I started to write really bad poetry. And I found myself in Chicago for about 6 months, I think. And while I was there, they had all these poetry slams. And I started going to these poetry slams with my really bad, fairly naive poems amongst people who were just so creative and amazing. And I was just like, wow, you guys are awesome. And I also had film. So remember back in the day when cameras used film? I had my point and shoot camera. It was for still photography. And I put a roll of black and white film in it. And all of a sudden the world changed for me. I started, as soon as I put the camera up and I looked through, all of a sudden everything became shapes. And composition suddenly was like, it made sense. And I still have photos from that first roll of film. And I look back and I'm so proud of what I did, because I had no idea really that I had an eye. And from there, the bad poetry turned into bad short scripts, which turned into better scripts, short scripts, which turned into longer, good scripts. And from there, also the artists I was hanging around with, I felt so inspired. I started studying acting, and I ended up going to New York to study theater down there.
Wow.
And when I came back, I had all these friends who were filmmakers, and they were like, so Sarah, when you're ready to direct, you can borrow my camera. Or, hey, Sarah, when you're ready to direct, I've got a makeup artist you should use. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. And I remember I was on one set and I was acting for this student kind of thing. And the director came up to me and he was like, and he was a friend of mine, he's Sarah. He goes, I appreciate your creativity, but this is my film. You need to do is act. You don't need to direct, but you should direct. Yeah. So he was like, you should be directing. And it was just like, I didn't see it in me.
Yeah.
And then oddly enough, 9/11 happened. And I saw this city that I loved so dearly being literally torn down.
Yeah.
And something in me just snapped. And I said, my own way from afar is to deal with this is to step into myself. And I started directing. I made my first short film that November. And from there, it was a continued love affair with filmmaking and just creativity and all that beautiful stuff. What led me to my business, where I now coach amazing entrepreneurs, is also trauma. It's interesting how some trauma can make you shift your life. So for me, it was really 2013. At that time, I was in a failing relationship where I lived at his house or his apartment. I had to move out after being dumped and then packing up my stuff. Awful. It was so traumatic. I'm like,
so I've heard of the walk of shame, which I disagree with because anti-sex shaming, don't do it. Don't sex shame people. But what do you call it when you've been dumped? It's like the pack of despair. What do you when you've been dumped, you have to pack up and move out?
Yes, it was a pack of despair. And I agree about the walk of shame. Yeah, no sex shaming, seriously. But yeah, it felt like the pack up of despair. And also during that time, I also had this lovely thing happening where loved ones were passing away. And I went through about 2 to 3 years there where every few months, a friend or family member was dying, all under the age of 55. And one in particular it was a very traumatic death. And I was on the care team for my aunt, Carrie. She was amazing, but wow, I would not wish her passing and how she went out on anyone. And so in that, I also had this thing of F death, screw that. And I finally decided to take this big leap in my life, which was to take a stage play that I had written and I had showed in Montreal and Toronto to rave reviews. And people, like one reviewer called it the next vagina monologues. And I was just like, so I brought the play to New York. I'd been invited to this festival down there in the midst of all of this stuff happening. And at the end of the experience, death is such a strange thing and how it affects you. Me bringing the play down there, I was just like, I need to do something that's life affirming because this is all, it's just too much. And when I got back from New York, and it's funny, one of the, not funny, haha, but just sad, but this one off-Broadway company was very interested in, and they were going to send people out to see my play. And the week that they were going to come see it, because we were up for a week and a half. So it's a very limited period of time, but someone on their team passed away.
Oh my goodness.
And it was just, I felt like death was everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I left New York without having had any of the interviews that I needed to have, without the people coming and showing up. And I had just put money into bringing it down there and so much work and blood, sweat, and tears. And when I got back home, I was just like, you know what? I need to step away from solely being an artist right now, because I feel like I'm on this sand that's constantly moving. And where before that's okay. When you're just like, yeah, I'm an artist, woo, and you deal with things every now and then, but not everything at once. I ended up taking this business program, the first one ever. And it was online for essentially how to create an online business. Yeah. But I took it because the leader of it said it was good for artists as well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take it and it'll help me with making sure that I make the most of the New York experience. And I got on with her and I was like, okay, what advice do you have? This is where I'm at. This is what's going on. And she's, yeah, it's different for artists. So just keep working for free and hope that the right people are in the room.
Oh, gross.
Right. And this is after she'd been like, so like transforming one person after another on the phone call. And then for me, yeah, keep working for free. And I was just like, you know what? I can't anymore. I need to feel like I have more control over my life because I clearly don't have control over my life because you can't save people. Like somebody's dying. I even had thoughts of maybe if I'd stayed as a scientist, maybe I would have been able to cure this. And I had that kind of thought of, I think, the frustration of feeling helpless in my own life and in my loved ones' lives.
I'm going to pause for a second, Sarah, because you are dropping so much gold, and I want to dive into some of these themes that you're sharing, if that's okay. Okay, so let's talk about that for a moment. This idea of feeling helpless and that triggering this need to save people. Because I think that a lot of people probably feel that right now. Even my story is minor and it has a happy ending, but my dad had a heart attack during the pandemic and had to go to the hospital, and I couldn't be there. He was there for 4 days by himself. And I was like, this sucks. He's probably very scared. He's alone. He's in the hospital during a pandemic. And I can't even be there to hug him and hold his hand. Yeah. And the ambulance came and they wheeled him away. And as they were wheeling him away, he burst into tears because of the fear that welled up in him. And all I could do was say goodbye. And they said, try phoning the hospital in a couple hours and they'll tell you what's up. And I think, like all I could do, I think I just cleaned my entire house. All I could do was just like sit here waiting to find out. So my point to that story is that a lot of people feel helpless, and it can trigger that need to do something and take action and fix it or save people. How did that initially affect you with starting your business? And how do you think that maybe plays out now?
I would say for me, again, oftentimes I think just looking at my own life as a possible example of it is that trauma can change your life and other people's trauma can change your life. And the role that it played for me in starting my business was really, I think, quite pivotal because it created this feeling of instability, which as an artist, I was already in that zone, but it heightened it to such an extent that where I knew in my heart, I need to make a change.
Yeah.
There's that saying.
I'm going to ask into that. How does instability mean I need to make a change? Tell us the connection.
Yeah, I think instability, extraordinary instability, and partnering that with grief and partnering that with a lot of grief, a lot of people passing away. I think as humans, when it gets to a point, we just want to be able to fix it. We want to be able to fix life. And that powerlessness of not, especially now with where the world is at and what visitation looks like when a loved one's in the hospital and their experience being alone, there's just devastation of life and a devastation of death, where death before this time that we're in right now was a lot more reasonable. You know what I mean? Like it's always traumatic. It's tough. It's awful. And I'll say for some people, they would say it's not tough and it's not traumatic or awful, that it's the next stage of life. Yeah. But for me, that's not where it sits in me. Yes. And I think that when you partner all of those things together, it leaves you feeling like you have to do something. Yeah. I need to do something, and something drastic that can at least answer what's happening in your life in some way. It may be completely unrelated to the trauma, but it's an answer and it's an activity rather than just curling up and feeling powerless to life all the time.
And when I hear you say it's not about curling up, the flip of that is it's about being alive. It's about taking an action, staking a claim, making a declaration. I'm alive, I'm here, and there are things that I can do.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And that time in my life, I had that in spades because they say, and it's something that I think just so many millions of people around the world are experiencing right now, where when it's not just one part of your life that's difficult, where it's, say you've lost a loved one. They say you can only handle a couple different big things happening in your life in a given year. where it was every single part of my life was kind of like crumbling down. And I think when regular life stuff is happening nowadays on top of a pandemic, it's just, there's so much to cope with and to deal with.
Yeah. So feeling the weight of that, not bouncing over it, feeling the weight of that, but slightly switching gears a little bit. You had this person say to you, "Oh, you're an artist. Well, just keep working for free," which I'm sure was slightly devastating because you were hoping this person was going to give you the answer. Was going to show you.
Yeah.
How did that translate into your business where you're like, "No, I got to make money," and you created this business where you're now coaching others how to show up in video, how to put themselves out there. So what was that process like from work for free to business, thriving business where I'm changing lives? Tell us that.
Sure. It's funny because the work for free advice came just before I was, about a month or two before I was heading down to New York with the play. And it was just like, that was so frustrating. I thought, here's someone who's saying she has the answer for artists to be able to really do their thing, but she had nothing. And when I got back from New York, and I was so exhausted, and I think a lot of that had to do with the grieving that was underneath me. And ironically, the play was also about grief and the grieving process with respect to a love relationship, and even further with an abusive relationship. So it's like different layers get peeled down in this play. But I did a lot of research on the stages of loss before I started writing it. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is the grandmother of this theory about the stages, I didn't realize it until last year, but she actually died the year that I started writing the play. Yeah, kind of interesting. And I just discovered that recently. But so I took the play down to New York. And when I got back, another friend died. And then I think the week before or the week after was when my boyfriend at the time dumped me. And it was one of these things where everything just broke, and I just started crying, and I was crying. It literally was the packing up of despair because I couldn't stop crying. And I said, "This is not about you." And I had to make it clear through the tears. I was like, "This is not about you." I said, this is about everything, about all the people I've lost and everything. Yeah. And I moved out, and in this course that I had taken, I met so many amazing entrepreneurs, and I was on a call with some of them. And I said, "So guys," I said, "I feel like I need to change something in my life, and I'm thinking about starting up a business." I said, "But I don't know what that business looks like. Could you go over to my website, like my name website, sarahmichellebrown.com, and tell me if you see something there?" So they went over, and we came back, I think the next week. And then they're like, "Okay, wait a minute, Sarah. So you're a director and you're comfortable behind the scenes." Yes. "And you're an actor and you're comfortable in front of the camera." Yes. "Here's your business." Help us because we suck at this. And that's where Videos That Shine was born. And one of the ladies from that group was actually my first client. And it was that's where it started.
Do you know what's so interesting? Hearing your story, I love how first it was the counselor that said, "I think you're in the wrong thing." And then it was your friends who said, "Okay, you need to be a director." And then it was these peers, his entrepreneur peers, who said, "Okay, but here's your business." And it's everybody could see it but you.
Yeah, it's true.
You get that sensation a lot where you feel like you're behind what everyone else can see.
Yes, definitely about the choices in my life. I find a lot of my choices come out of instinct. And I think this maybe is because I'm more creative as a person rather than practical as a person.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I know that there's a change, a transformation that needs to happen. And sometimes I know exactly what it is, but sometimes all I know is the instinct to change.
Yes.
And yes, I have definitely had other people, whether I wanted the advice or not at the time, who said, "Here's what you need to do." Definitely.
I remember when I just first started my business, and similar to you, there was a lot of pretty painful stuff happening, swirling around me at that time. And I was really caught up in the stupid drama of things. And I had a friend invite me over for lunch, and I just thought we were going to have a great lunch, and started talking about something. And he just was like, Lindsay, what are you doing? You have something amazing here, and you're caught up in stupid drama that doesn't matter. And basically, get your head out of your butt and think bigger and go for it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, you know, when you're in the day-to-day muck, it's so hard sometimes to see that bigger picture for yourself. And it sounds like a similar situation in that the instinct is there, the inclination is there, but we're buried under so many other things. And again, I think that is a very relatable perspective for what's going on right now. It's unrelenting, this pandemic muck. And it could be so easy to just drown in that and get lost in that and lose that bigger vision. I was at the gym this morning and I was thinking to myself, what is my why? I feel like I've lost touch with my why. And it occurred to me, my why lately has been about survival, support my parents, pay my bill. Like my why I lost my big, audacious, sexy, scary why. And I'm like, yeah, I think most people can probably relate to that right now. We've just lost. So when you think about for yourself or your clients or your students, how do you help them tap into that bigness of them and put it out there when they're caught up in the muck?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And that thing around the muck, and right now it's muck on top of muck on top of muck. Yeah. So people who generally start working with me are already in their lives afraid to put themselves out there. Yes. They're afraid of being judged harshly, of being seen as not interesting, that they're boring, that they're ugly, they're too old. Yeah.
I absolutely believe it. Yep. Not disagreeing.
Yeah. All the things, all the reasons why they won't be able to be successful. And it comes out with video. I'd say video and money are the two places where those old beliefs show up the most. Adding that on top of a pandemic, people have been showing up in different types of, before I even jump in and talk about how to cope with visibility in a pandemic, when you're scared to put yourself out there, I want to impart that the journey of going from feeling really afraid to have a voice, to put yourself out there, to be seen and heard, what happens is a transformation so that people go from feeling terrified to feeling empowered, so that the process of putting themselves out there is one that lifts them up rather than tears them down.
Yes.
And the reason I can speak so firmly about it is because I have gone through the exact same journey in my life. We mentioned earlier about how I went into my intellect at one point as a kid. It was all about the grades and keeping my head down, doing the work. And that came from my mom, and my dad is actually my stepdad, but he's my dad. And they are both white. And I grew up with the white side of my family. I did not meet the black side of my family until I was started meeting them at around the age 20. Okay. And I'm the oldest of 6 siblings on that side, and I love them dearly. But before I met that side of the family, it was me in a family that was all white. And what complications can come up with that? You go to a restaurant with your family as a kid and they're like, oh, table of 5. And it's, no, I'm with them, clearly. Things like that. Just, there was always stuff to deal with as that one brown kid or one brown person in the family. And when I was around 11, my mom and step moved out of the city to a smaller town. And where I went from a very multicultural, multi-religious, multi-everything community to one that was, hey, I'm the diversity. Or I was one of few people in the town, and all that comes with that. And I suddenly did not feel safe in my life.
Yeah.
So I shut down all that was creative about me, all that could be judged harshly, and put that away. I packed it up and put it like on the shelf. and focused in on my intellect. That was just Sarah coping with racism and all that fun stuff.
Do you think you had to prove yourself? Do you think you went to the intellect to prove yourself?
I'm sure part of it was of if I do well at school, I have that.
Yeah.
And I was definitely known as being a smart kid. I was never one of the cool kids. And I really didn't want to be. It was just small town mentality. It was just awful.
School trauma, high school trauma.
Seriously, it's like, yeah. So I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time. I didn't decide to do that. It was just like gut instinct of, as you mentioned before, it's not about my mission. It's about survival. So me as a creative kid, it didn't matter at that time. Survival is what mattered.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I started to understand that I was an artist in my 20s, and that I was creative and I had a voice and I was actually a playwright too. And it's just director, what? Oh my God. I had to go through my own process of, number one, giving myself permission to be that person.
Yeah.
You know? Number two, to take action despite the consequences that I feared. And I had fear around my grandparents. My grandfather was an Anglican bishop.
Okay.
And I had a voice that was not Anglican. I had a voice that was could be crass at times, funny, dealing with things around sex and sexuality, like all sorts of things that I was like, if I put this voice out there, he's going to disown me.
Oh.
And I was so afraid of that happening for such a long time. And it really squashed my voice for a long time.
Yeah.
And then finally, I started to put myself out there, and my stage play, which has a delightful scene where the women fake orgasms. And it's actually really funny. Like, we're fully clothed. We are not touching ourselves. We're just standing on the edge of the stage, faking loudly and badly orgasms. And my grandpa came to see the play. And before he did, I had this conversation with him. I said, so Grandpa, there's going to be stuff in this play that you may have a problem with. When I was at that time ready to deal with the consequences, if I do this and he says, you're not my grandchild, then that's why I was at that point. And I was like, I need to be myself.
That's beautiful, because again, that's a very hard thing to say. I'm going to be myself, and I understand there may be consequences, and it may cost me relationships, and it may cost me important relationships, but I need to be myself, and I'm going to do it. That's huge.
Yeah, it felt very huge. And I was very nervous because I was also one of the actors in the play. So I wrote it and produced it, and I also acted in it at the time. And he came out and, so when I said to him, there's gonna be stuff in here that you may have a problem with, he's like, oh, I can't imagine that. You're Sarah. And I'm like, oh. So he came out in the front row, and it was funny because he was there with my great aunt and great uncle in the front row, and they were all in their 70s at the time. And towards the end of the play, I looked out, they were all asleep. My grandpa was definitely awake for the faking orgasm scene. So afterwards, I was like, oh, when I'm leaving the theater and going to see my family outside, I was like, oh, here it comes, here it comes. And I went out, and he was like, Sarah, that was amazing. That was so good.
Yeah.
And Lindsay, for the next 2 to 3 months, every time he called, he mentioned the word orgasm.
You've unlocked something in him.
I was in such shock. I was like, what's happening right now?
But like, everybody listening, do you understand that when you hold back who you really are, I talk about how you break relationship. Whereas when we put it out there, look at the relationship that shifted and that opened here, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it was between you and him and orgasms,
I don't know, Grandpa. I love you, Grandpa. Yeah. And doing that type of a breakthrough for myself and my voice, my visibility, was so crucial to me being a successful artist in my own way. And fortunately, I didn't have to take that type of a leap during a freaking pandemic. For right now, for everyone who's listening and you are scared of making videos and putting yourself out there and you feel insecure in life right now, I get it. And it's extremely important for you to put yourself out there.
Yeah, and exactly. I get it, and you need to do it. So let's jump off that point then. And what are your top, let's say top 3 tips for somebody who really is afraid of putting themselves out there? What are 3 tips for them to be able to do that?
Yeah. Number 1 is give yourself permission to be a beginner, especially when it comes to video. Because I think we don't see the process of filmmaking a whole lot unless you're really into documentaries about the filmmaking process. But even then, you're not seeing how many thousands of hours go into projects and the 18-hour days and the blood, sweat, and tears. Like, you're not seeing it. So we think, oh, if I film a video, I should post a video, and that's how it works. But no. I highly recommend, if you're terrified of putting yourself out there, that you start with practice videos. So these are not meant to be seen by your people. It's videos for a safe space where people know the rules of engagement. I'd say number 2, you get to set the rules of engagement. The rules of engagement are no criticism or critique on the video is allowed. And I always say our loved ones are the worst video experts because they will tell you all the things you're doing wrong. And you will probably stop making videos, and they think they're being helpful. Oh God, you can't post that. Things like that, where they're not good filmmakers for you. They're not.
And also, how much are they projecting their own fears of putting themselves out there and their own need to be perfect before they do? And they're looking at yours and going, oh my gosh, but you're not perfect. So to take into consideration people's projections of their own fears.
That's true. Yeah. When you are posting a video or you want feedback on a video in this early, really vulnerable stage of putting yourself out there, the rules of engagement are only positive, not critique, but positive feedback, and be honest. So when you honestly look for the good things, you honestly find the good things. You find little kernels of where they can go. Oh, that color looks great on you. Hey, you did it. Hooray. Oh, I love when you laughed at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, that you have a gorgeous smile. Oh, I love those glasses on you. Yeah. You know, those small, it's almost, if you think of it like a well, and you are adding in drops of positivity that fill the well.
Yeah.
Okay. And that happens before you start to do anything where you want criticism, critique on it, or things that are public. Yeah. So get all of your hiccups and the nerves and the fears out of the way first and foremost with those practice videos. Number 3, those practice videos should not be about your business, because then you'll be trying to remember things. And we know what happens when you get in front of that camera and you're terrified of it, you forget things. So you're not allowed to talk about the business in these. Just talk about something that's extremely easy for you to talk about from your life. Oh, my favorite dress is this. Oh, my favorite meal is XYZ.
Yeah.
I love my partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love my or why I love my partner. Things that you don't have to think about. Yeah. And you can just talk about.
Yeah, that is brilliant. That is brilliant. So give yourself permission to be a beginner. Set the rules of engagement, only positive feedback. And then don't talk about your business. Talk about something fun and easy that you can just ramble on. You can just go for it.
Yeah. And that's the basic principles of learning how to do this the right way. Because otherwise, every time you're on camera, it feels awful.
Yeah.
And we don't want to imprint that in you, that every time you're on camera, it's awful. Instead, we're going, no, let's make it feel good.
We want to make
it
better. Feel good. Yeah. It's like when you're working out at the gym, if you go too hard, you're going to hurt and you're not going to want to go back. It's the same thing here.
You got it.
We want to make it enjoyable so that you want to come back.
100%.
You have a 5-day visibility challenge. Tell us a little bit about that.
The 5-day visibility challenge is so much fun. And you've heard about like the 30-day visibility challenges and like the 20-day ones or whatever, 21 days. This one will get you there in 5 days because I teach you some really important mindset shifts each of those days. And these are little gifts and little drops in the well for you to start going, oh, maybe I can do this. Mm-hmm. And each day you also take action. So each day you'll be creating one of these practice videos and posting it in the group. I know it sounds scary, but
no, I love that because you're teaching people how to fall in love with it already. So of course you'd want to do that. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
Yes. And I love what you said about falling in love with it because I understand how scary it can be to put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. I'm also a natural introvert. Me being overexposed, oh my God, do I feel when that happens? But giving yourself permission to actually maybe enjoy this process, like it should feel good.
Yeah.
If it feels awful, it means you're still in the beginner phase. And especially with all that's going on in the world right now, if this can be a place where you feel more empowered in your business, where you feel excited rather than terrified, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. And can I tell you, when you put yourself out there with video, people will give you feedback. Like for friends that are listening, when you put yourself out there, they will email you, they will comment, they will tell you how much they enjoyed it, how much they love seeing your face. And that is so encouraging because you realize that it's not even about you. It's about the people who are seeing it and how you're impacting them. And talk about rewarding.
Yeah. And I love that you said that it's not really about them. And that's the truth. I always teach my people, video is not about you. It's about the person watching and giving generously of your heart to them. Yeah. And it's a lesson I learned as an artist because I thought art was all about me for a really long time. And it was my voice and my this, that, and yes, absolutely is in every single project that I've done. But you have to also remember your audience and take responsibility for how you make them feel.
Yeah, take responsibility for how you make them feel. Wowza. All right, Sarah, how can folks stay in touch with you?
Oh, you know what? Come on over to my Instagram and Videos That Shine. Come over and say hi.
I love it. At Videos That Shine. Friends, all of the things we talked about today, some of the summary of the points, the transcript, the 5-day visibility challenge, Sarah's website, Sarah's Instagram, all of that is going to be in the show notes. So come on over to the show notes and connect with Sarah. Sarah, this has been magical and wonderful, and I feel like we've gotten to really know you, but also your why, your mission, and how you were able to turn grief and pain and trauma and feeling out of control and feeling helpless into something that is not only fulfilling and rewarding for you, but is genuinely changing lives out there. I love it. Big kudos to you. Congratulations on the success of your business and on the lives you've changed. It has been an absolute dream having you here with me today.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And I appreciate you have so much compassion and empathy as an interviewer. So it was a delight to talk with you.
Yay, I love it. All the love. All right, Sarah, we will talk to you real soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you want to learn more about joining my community for new entrepreneurs who want to ditch the busy work and discover how to work less and play more all the way to 6 figures and beyond, please visit theradicalconnector.com. Check out today's show notes for all the juicy resources we covered. If you loved what you've heard, subscribe and leave a review. Happy connecting. I will see you online.